Number 1 scary old lady. I've never posted here before, but I think this encounter might be worth sharing. It certainly scared the crap out of me at the time. It was 2001. I was a single mom, 3 for you at the time, and my son was 10. I took my son to his elementary school on my way to work. My schedule allowed for it, and it was nice to start our days out together. I'd drop him off and head to work that was about 10 minutes away. I had to cross over a river that ran through the city. I've always hated stopping on bridges at traffic lights, and this light seems extra long. Glancing around as I waited, I was watching people in their cars, the river, and that traffic light that seemed to be stuck on red. Looking in my rearview mirror, I noticed a little white-haired old lady driving a little car. She was watching me in my rearview mirror as well. I was curious, so I kept looking at her, and she threw her head back and laughed or cackled. Then she looked hard at me in the mirror, made a slashing across her neck sign, and then made a cradle of her arms, rocking it back and forth, and then she pointed at me. The longer I watched her, just the more disturbed I was. She just kept doing this over and over again and laughing. If you're a parent, you know this is not something that you prank other cars about. It felt evil, but no paranormal stuff here, so that's just my take on it. Well, it had me pretty rattled, and once that light turned green, I flew up the street to get to work. And of course, I got more anxious the longer I was driving. By the time I got to work, I was in a full panic and went to my office and called the school. My son was in a special class alongside his regular assigned class. If he got too restless, he could go to the special class as an accommodation. So I was able to speak directly to his teacher immediately. I told her what happened. She said, "Boy, that sounds scary," and assured me my son was okay. I've often thought back to that event, and I don't know if it was a harbinger of doom or just an encounter with crazy. But my son died suddenly, just weeks before his 19th birthday. The last thing I said to him was, "I love you, baby."
Number 2, my ex-boyfriend tricked me into seeing a body. Was dating a guy twice my age who I worked at a grocery store with. He has a side job with the morgue where he picks up bodies on call. He takes them to the morgue and does paperwork, tags them, and puts them in the freezer. I thought what he did was admirable because someone needs to do it. And death is a touchy subject. He made himself out to be a really great person who cares about people and wants to be that guy who can get the hard stuff done in a caring manner. Unfortunately, he turned out to be a creep. The morgue also does funnel services and stuff, so there are little rooms with chairs and such, also an office. One night we were supposed to hang out and he asked me to meet him at the morgue. This was in the middle of the night. Nobody else there. I figured we'd meet up and leave to get food or just talk in his car like usual. But instead he wanted me to come inside. He showed me around the little rooms in the office. It was kind of cool, like being in a horror video game. Then he told me to wait and he left me in the office. After a few minutes he texted me and told me to come into a room I hadn't been in. It was the room where they get the bodies ready for the freezer and do the paperwork. I didn't know. I went inside and there was a dead body just out in the open in the middle of the room on a gurney. I froze in the doorway because I wasn't expecting it. I felt like I should be upset, but he thought it was funny and I kind of just played cool. He wanted me to look at it. It was an old lady. I've seen plenty of stuff on the internet, so thought to myself this wasn't as messed up as it was. He finished up and then took me into the freezer to show me other bodies. There were like 6 in there in body bags, only one other one unzipped. He also showed me the oven where they were cremated. This was all in the middle of the night. No warning on my part. Nobody else in the building. I kind of just blocked out the memory for a couple months. Started having other issues with the guy and ended up telling the story to a friend. Friend helped me realize the situation was fucked. Just thought I'd share here since I've since still had issues with this dude and finally have him blocked on everything. Hopefully he leaves me alone.
Number 3 Juvenile Murderer. In December 1987, I was living in Marshfield, Wisconsin, with several roommates. I was 20, working 2 jobs, and usually exhausted. On Sunday night, December 6th, I came home to find a party in full swing at the apartment. Most of the people there were underage and drunk. Too tired to do anything about it, I grabbed a beer and sat in the corner. I think the cops showed up around midnight, and the place emptied instantaneously. Late Monday morning, I had errands to run and was still annoyed about the party. That's when 3 people from the night before showed up at the apartment. One of them was a guy named Brian Moeller, along with 2 girls I vaguely remembered. They wanted to hang out, but I didn't want anyone there unsupervised, so I said no, and they left. Early on Tuesday morning, December 8th, I awoke to pounding on the door. It was the police, and they wanted us to accompany them to the station to answer some questions. That's when we found out what happened. On the night of the party, Brian got a flat tire on his way over Beer Run, I think. While dealing with the flat, the police stopped, and he got busted for underage drinking and was taken to the station, which explains why the party got busted. His mother came to pick him up, and in the early hours of December 7th, they got into a fight about his drinking. During the fight, he struck her with a bat, then strangled her until she had no pulse. He later claimed he didn't intend on killing her, but the violence of the act was undeniable. Soon after I turned them away, they were apprehended near Pittsville, WA, apparently headed for Iowa. I've had several creepy encounters, but this one ranks up there at the top.
Number 4 Home Alone Story. This happened over a decade ago when I was 12 years old. I live in a small town in Oklahoma, and in my neighborhood the houses are fairly spread apart, separated by woods. It was a school day, so my grandma picked me up from school and brought me home. This was the first year that I got dropped off at my house alone. Before this, I would just go to my grandma's house after school. I would get dropped off at around 3 p.m., and my parents would be home around 4:30. Not that big of a deal. Today, for some reason, my dad wasn't going to be home until later, around 7, and my mom, a teacher, wouldn't be home until around 8 p.m. because she had parent-teacher conferences at the school. This happened in early fall, so it wouldn't even be dark until like 8:30 p.m. I did what I usually did when I got home. I ran upstairs, got on my Xbox 360, and played Minecraft with my friends. Today it was just me and my friend Seth. I was playing for about 2 hours when I heard a car door shut in my driveway. No one should have been here until like 7 p.m. My house is set up to where my upstairs has windows that look over my driveway. So with my mic on and controller in hand, I went to the window to see who it was. Maybe my dad got home earlier than expected. I looked outside. It was a red truck. No one I know drives a red truck. The person pulled into the middle of my driveway sideways, like he owned the place. When I looked out the window, I saw a man with a hat, wearing a big camo hoodie and jeans. It was September, so no one should have been wearing a big hoodie and jeans in Oklahoma. By the time I looked, he was already almost out of view, going up my walkway to my front door. I thought maybe it was one of my dad's friends, or someone my dad hired to do something. But he would usually tell me if someone was going to be coming over. Soon after, I hear a knock at the door. Then another. I go to my other window that has a better view of the walkway up to my front door. I see the guy walking back down the walkway. I switch and go back to looking through the windows overlooking my driveway. I'm relaying all of this to Seth still with my mic on. I tell Seth that he's walking back to his truck now. Instead, he walks past his truck and tries to open my garage side door. At this point, my heart sinks. I tell Seth that this guy just tried to get into my house. Mind you, it is literally broad day at like 5 p.m. Luckily it was locked because sometimes we forget to lock it. After he tried the door, he starts walking to my back patio. I drop my headset and I quietly run downstairs to see what he is doing. I get downstairs and stand behind the wall so I'm not visible from the back door living room windows. I just listen. I hear him try to open the door. Then I hear a thud. It sounded like he dropped a brick on the ground or something. At this point, I'm more scared than I've ever been. I wanted to call my parents or grandma, but I didn't have a cell phone yet. The only phone in the house was in my kitchen. I would have to cross my living room to get there, and he would be able to see me if I went into there. A few seconds after the thud, I peeked around the corner and he was gone. I run back upstairs and put my headset back on, telling Seth that he just tried to open the back door as well. As I'm telling him this, I hear a car door shut. This time, when I look out the window, he finally got in his truck. I looked at the truck closer, and I noticed the only thing he has in his truck bed was a crowbar and shovel. He sat in his truck for what felt like a few minutes. During this time, Seth told me to get my iPod and take a picture of his license plate. He was parked to where I couldn't see it. Then he drove backwards out of my driveway and down the road. A few minutes after he was confirmed gone, I went downstairs to see what the thud could have been. I get to the back door and see that the doormat was moved. Both big plant pots had been moved as well. He was looking for a key. Holy fuck! We have a hidden key back there too. The key to the back door was under one of the smaller plant pots on a ledge near the door. Not the bigger ones that he had checked under. I went to the front porch and all the pots looked like they had been moved too. I don't know what I would have done if he was able to find the key, or if he just broke in. After he left, I called my dad and told him what happened. When my dad got home, he had a cop come over, and I told him what happened and gave him a description. The guy never came back. Number 5, my experience at 14. So when I was 14, I liked to go for walks alone. Just me, some music, and wherever I decided to go. One day might have been early spring. I'm walking through a beautiful wooded area, with the sun glimpsing through the branches and leaves. I saw a man, I'd say around mid-30s, walking and looking around in the opposite direction to me. He then turned to me and asked if I had seen his dog. Me being oblivious to what he said no, and tried to walk away. But he seemed really desperate and upset, practically begging for my help. So eventually I agreed, and you helped him look for close to an hour. Eventually, he disappeared down a heavily wooded area and called out that he found his dog and needed help to free him from some branches. Me being relieved to have found the dog was originally skeptical to go in after, but stupidly I did. It was only then where I found the man's true intentions. He had pulled his trousers and pants down and wanted me to do unspeakable things to him. I stood frozen as he only stepped closer towards me. In a panic, I ran whilst trying to take photos of him to show anyone for help. But as I ran, he chased close behind. We came to a bridge which was other a river. Don't ask me how I did it, but I managed to slip, dropping my phone into the river. I scrabbled to my feet and continued to run, where I realized he wasn't chasing me anymore. He had seemingly disappeared. I've never told anyone this story, because I thought no one would believe me, that now I'm 17 and happily in a relationship. It's been on my mind for the last 4 years, and now I just have to tell someone.
Like and subscribe for more interesting stories.